Between 1901 and 1909, Teddy Roosevelt was the President of the United States. He made many changes that affected future America and was very well liked. Some of Roosevelt's biggest reforms were environmental. He created the idea of land conservation and management by instituting national parks and monuments. In addition, in 1905, he created the U.S. Forest Service. His work to start the Forest Service required a lot of help from Gifford Pinchot. Pinchot created the idea of forest rangers, nicknamed Little GPs. In 1909, William Taft succeeded Teddy Roosevelt, making him the president during the Big Burn. Around this time, the West was nothing short of wild. The legendary towns of the Wild West were thriving with the business of mining, logging, and railroad expansion. Many were populated by immigrants working on the railroads. At this time, people had a very laissez-faire mindset regarding forest fires. People believed that the fires would put themselves out and were beneficial to clearing land. This mindset would change very soon. The mountains of northern Idaho, Montana, and Washington have a long history of fire. A normal fire season starts mid-summer, but the one of 1910 started in April. A devastating drought hit the Northwest in 1910 and made the forest very vulnerable to fires. Trains were starting many new fires along new railroad cuts, and many storms came through the area but brought no rain, just an abundance of lightning and strong winds. On July 26, 1910, a dry thunderstorm came through the area and ignited more than 1,000 fires in Idaho and Montana. This marked the beginning of the Big Burn. On August 20th, 1910, winds up to 70 miles per hour, called the Palouse winds, combined all the scattered fires. In 36 hours, 3 million acres were burned and 78 firefighters were killed. This is known as the Big Blowup. The town of Wallace, Idaho was in the middle of the blowup and got burned over. People rushed and panicked to evacuate the town by railroad. The firefighting force at the time consisted of forest rangers with 12 to 20 person crews and a big number of soldiers from the U.S. Army. Also, many able-bodied men were drafted to fight the fires. Men like timber cutters, miners, and others looking for money. This fire was incredibly powerful and almost unstoppable, and especially dangerous to the crews fighting them. Many people were saved by the efforts of the Army troops and the Forest Service. They became the era's heroes. After the Big Burn, people declared the firefighting effort a failure due to the deaths and land loss. But Pinchot defended the Rangers, bringing up the fact that they were heroes for their efforts despite having little to work with. In response, Congress doubled the budget for wildland firefighting and agreed to expand the Forest Service's controlled territories. Resulting from these changes, more than 30,000 people were hired to the Forest Service and a strong fire suppression policy was enacted. The Forest Service began finding the best way to fight fire and protect the land. Also, the American elite advocated for fires to be fought. They argued fires were natural but need to be fought so the land isn't ruined. Many historians argue that the fire saved the agency and the forest by raising awareness to the danger of fire brings.
My name is Jim Cook. I've spent 37 years as a wildland firefighter. In the first 27 years, I worked on and was in charge of 20-person hotshot crews stationed all around the country. The last 10 years, I was the Assistant Wildland Fire Training Officer for the U.S. Forest Service, and I was stationed here in Boise at the National Fire Center. Well, the Big Burn was an event that probably saved the future of the U.S. Forest Service. It was a very young agency at that time, only 5 or 6 years old. The political climate at the time was not good for the Forest Service, like it is today in a lot of ways. And Big Burn gave the Forest Service an opportunity to show why it was important to this country. And it became well funded after that event, and I think the Forest Service is one of the greatest gifts the American public has ever given to itself. So I think that's one of the great outcomes of the Big Burn. Well, Ed Pulaski's a great story for firefighters today. He's one of our early heroes. I think one of the things that still lives today through Ed Pulaski is the tradition of strong, decisive leadership and putting the welfare of your crew before yourself. He displayed those traits, and they carry on today in our business. He also invented the Pulaski hand tool, which we use today. All very, very common use today for building fire lines.
After the Big Burn, people began to think that all fires were detrimental to the land, and an effort to prevent them came about. With this movement in the 1940s, Smokey Bear became a very popular symbol, and he is used everywhere across the country as a symbol of fire prevention today. Along with the importance of fire prevention, the organization to fight the fires grew. Organized crews and more effective tactics were developed as the U.S. Forest Service became one of the most recognized federal agencies in the 20th century. Today, there are over 100 specialized wildland firefighting crews in Idaho alone and thousands across the country.